Hello everyone, and welcome to one of the first episodes of Inside the Mind of the Literature, featuring the Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. One of the finest and most fantastic erotic literatures and one of my favorite novels that I ever read. The Unbearable Lightness of Being was a novel set during the counterculture movement in the late 60s in Czechoslovakia, now modern-day Czech Republic and Slovakia. The decades that the countries had a problem due to the Soviet invasions of their countries and political repression by the communist government. The novel was published in the original Czech until 1985 by the Exile Publishing House 68 publisher in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The second edition of Czech language was published in October 2006 in Brno, some 18 years after the Velvet Revolution. Because Kundera did not appear earlier, the first English translations by Michael Henry Heim was published in hardback in 1984 by Harper and Row in the US and Faber and Faber in the UK, and paperback in 1985, and was adapted as a movie in 1988 by director Philip Kaufman, starring by Daniel Day-Lewis, Juliette Binoche, and Lena Olin. But in this video, we will not analyze film versions that directed by Philip Kaufman. The only thing that I know about it is I didn't watch the movie, and the movie was released on Criterion Collection and is out of print right now. These analyzed versions, it will be only the novel. Yeah, only the novel. And now let's begin of this analyzing the novel, The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. The novel begins in 1968, and the main protagonist of this novel is Tomáš. He was a surgeon that came from Prague in Czechoslovakia. He was quite to be a womanizer and explorer, briefly married in the past. He neither sees nor wishes to see his ex-wife or young son, and is conformably established as a pretentious bachelor. He met Teresa, a cafe waitress in a town he visited, and realized when she followed him to Prague that she intended to offer him up her life. A determined libertine, he momentarily resists his budding romantic feeling for her, then gives in to his love. Teresa had been living a frustrated life as a waitress in a small town in Czechoslovakia and dreamed of escaping this town, especially from her Wagner mother. She intensely recognized Tomáš as an intellectual and dreamer and fall in love with him. The two live together, but Tomáš cannot give us his mistress. For a while, he hides his indefinitely from Teresa. Eventually, he admitted it, but claimed his sexuality is entirely separated from his love for her. Teresa, unable to accept his behavior or adopted a light attitude towards sex, suffered increasingly from nightmare and contemplated suicide. To keep Teresa happy, Tomáš married her. He became his mistress, however, including his closest friend and long-term lover, Sabina, a beautiful, reddish, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and talented painter. Despite herself, Teresa is charmed by Sabina's openness and lightness hardness, and the two women grow friendly. Sabina finds Teresa a job in Prague as a photographer. Despite her friendship with Sabina, Teresa jealousy of Tomáš does not slacken. The events of Prague Springs results in the Soviet military occupations of the city. Tomáš, who in the press wrote an article condemning the Czech communist regime, is warned to leave. Sabina flees first, and later Tomáš and Teresa join her in Switzerland. Teresa, who found some fulfillment in her job as a photographer in Prague, realized that in Zurich she is jobless and must sit at home, while Tomáš continued to have affairs. She decided that when the strong were too weak to hurt the weak had to be strong enough to live, and returned to Prague. Tomáš attempted to enjoy his newly recovered freedom for a few days, then gave up a return to Prague and Teresa. The return tour means giving up freedom. There is no chance the couple will be allowed to live again. In Prague, Tomáš's political trouble escalated. He lost his position as a surgeon for refusing to sign a rebunk of his anti-communist articles against the Czechoslovak Communist Party and the secret police, the STB, or Stani Bezpečnost, or in English means state security. Both the STB and the anti-communist dissident attempted to seduce him into their side. His son reappeared as a young dissident and preaches to Tomáš with no success. For Tomáš hated the idea of being used politically, like Sabina hated artistic kitsch. In the end, Thomas seeked obsessively in job washing windows. His fame persisted, however, and he continued seducing the women he worked for. In desperation, Teresa, now a bartender, has an affair with a tall engineer who comes to her bars. She does so in the hope of coming closer to Thomas' way of life. Instead, she grew more miserable and became convicted the man was a police agent who worked for the STB. He hired to get the potential blackmailing material. After many scenes and nightmares, she convinced Thomas to move with her to the county in somewhere in Czechoslovakia. This means entirely giving up their ways of life and ending Thomas' erotic adventures. After living peacefully in the country for some time, Thomas and Teresa are brutally killed one night in a driving accident. They die instantly and together. In Geneva, Sabina has a love affair with Franz, a university professor in the Zurich University and a distinct intellectual who have more in common emotionally with Teresa and Sabina. He imbues his life with heavy meaning. He views Sabina as a romantic and encouraged Czech dissident, and is tortured that he must betray his wife. Marie clawed to see her. Sabina loved Franz, but their views on betrayal differ dramatically. In contrast, he hated the ideas of betrayal. She views as the first step toward going off into the unknown, the most gorgeous thing she can think of when Franz leaves his wife and expects to move with her. Sabina ultimately leaves Switzerland. Sabina leaves Geneva for Paris, and then Paris for America. She learned of Thomas and Teresa's death from the letters and understands her last link to the past has been broken. She ends up living in an elderly American couple and wondering if she has reached the end of her perpetual fight. Franz remains separate from his wife. After Sabina's betrayal, he finds consolation with a young student, a girl in oversized glasses, who loves him. Franz never accepted that he misunderstood Sabina, but continued to hold her image as an idea in his head, wrongfully thinking his decision in life would have made her proud. At his death, his wife remains Franz's body, and although the words are returned after long wandering, written on his tombstone. Now let's talk about the character of the novel. The main character of the novel is Tomáš, a Czechoslovak surgeon and intellectual. Tomáš is a womanizer who lives for his work. He considers sex and love distinct entity. He has sex with many women, but loves only his wife. Teresa, he sees no contradiction between these two positions. He explains womanizing as an imperative to explore female idiosyncrasy, only expressed during sex. At first, he viewed his wife as a burden he must care for. After the Warsaw Pact invasion, they escaped to Zurich, where he started womanizing again. Teresa, homesick, returned to Prague with a dog. He quickly realized he wanted to be with her and follow her homes. He has to deal with the consequence of a letter to the editor in which he metaphorically liked the communist regime of Czechoslovakia, eventually fed up with life in Prague. After the communist regimes took over the countries and the new government was established, Tomáš and Teresa moved to the countryside. He abandoned his twin obsessions of work and womanizing and discovered true happiness with Teresa. His aim, written by his Catholic son, is he wanted the kingdoms of God and earth. Another character is Teresa, Tomáš's young wife, brown hair, green eye, a gentle intellectual photographer. She delved into dangerous and dissonant photojournalism during the Soviet occupation of Prague. Sabina was a blonde-haired and blue-eyed mistress, a closest friend. Sabina is an extreme example of lightness, taking profound significations in betrayal. She declared war on kitsch and struggled against the consideration imposed upon her by her Puritan ancestry and the communist regime of Czechoslovakia. Franz was a Swiss man, Sabina lover, and a Geneva professor and idealistic. Franz fell in love with Sabina, whom he considered a liberal and romantically tragic Czech dissident. Karenin, the dog of Tomáš and Teresa. Although she is a female dog, the name is masculine and references Alexei Karenin, the husband in the Leo Tolstoy novel Anna Karenina. Karenin displayed an extreme dislike of change. Once moved to the countryside, Karenin becomes more content as she can enjoy more attention from her companions. Simon, a Tomáš enraged son from an earlier marriage. Marie Claude, Franz's wife, a Geneva socialite, a regular and pretentious woman. She forced Franz to marry her by treating suicide. She calmly allowed Franz to move out but does not grant him a divorce. And after his death, she reclaimed his body. Now let's talk about the theme of the novel. The main theme of the novel is lightness and fate. Both get linked to a philosophy of life, and several characters, the ancient Greek paramedic, mentioned in the novel opening page, is a philosopher of lightness to whom weight is harmful, accepting the funds of being means, taking a certain lack of humanity, meaning life and living for fleeting beauties. Those who get lightness, for example, are not likely to ally themselves with political parties, either the communist government or the dissident. While Thomas and Sabina are fictional characters by lightness, Sabina is more extreme example as she consistently refused to be tied down. Thomas, on the other hand, ultimately returned to Teresa in Prague. And the politics is more wise in the novel. And all recognize, all come to realize one of Kundera's most important ideas, that all die-hard political or ideological parties are fundamentally the same. Sabina remains on this an artistic level, seeing that communists, fascists, and the highly religious all employ systematical kitsch, deviant art, and propaganda. Thomas realized this when both the Czech regimes and the dissident group pursued him and want him to sign something. He realized that both groups plan to use and misprint his word. And another is the bowler hat, which Sabina described as a little morph in her life, act in the novel as a symbol for her eroticism and rebellion. The hat originally belonged to her grandfather has been made, originally out of mischief, into an erotic play by Sabina and Thomas. When Franz removed the bowler from her head before making love, it symbolized his stiffening effect on what Sabina viewed as her most essential characteristic, unabashed eroticism and betrayal of rule. And now let's talk about the novel ending of this novel. Teresa has a dream in which Thomas is called to report to the local airfield and then shot by 3 men who are members of the secret police. His body shrinks into a small rabbit, which one of the men catches and gives it to Teresa. She finds herself in Prague and finds the house in which her parents once lived. All the while she holds on to the rabbit and knows she can't keep it forever. Thomas tells Teresa he had been receiving letters from his son. Teresa watches him work, realizes how old he has grown, and suddenly feeling guilty for everything she has put him through. She realizes she has fought him further and further away from his original life as a successful surgeon in Prague. To make him prove he loved her, Thomas is now weak and old, like the rabbit from her dream. A man hurt his arm while working and Thomas recollected it for him. That night, in celebration, they all go out dancing. After they return home, Thomas confessed her guilty feelings to Thomas, who tells her he is happy. Their room resembles the bedrooms Teresa's dream of as a child again. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the new OM24. And if some parts was inaccurate, then I will apologize about that. And see you later in the next episodes on Inside the Mind of the Literature.